heavy side in places. A mostly dry start to Monday across southern England with sunny spells and light southerly winds, perhaps an increasing risk of a shower later. Feeling muggy with temperatures around 18 Celsius. Heading towards lunchtime and there will be plenty of sunny spells, but an increasing risk of some heavy showers, especially in the south. And that's how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good evening, it's 11 o'clock. I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. Tory leadership hopeful Liz Truss is considering freezing energy bills for millions of UK households if she wins the Conservative Party leadership race. That's according to The Telegraph. The newspaper reports she may introduce a freeze on energy bills within weeks of her taking office if she becomes the next Prime Minister. Speaking to the BBC One Sunday with Laura Coombsberg, the Foreign Secretary said the current policy on distribution of income hasn't grown the economy and it would be fair to give wealthy earners back more money.
It's fair. We promised in our manifesto that we would not raise national insurance. I opposed the decision to raise it in Cabinet because it was the wrong decision. I believe it is the right
thing.
thing.
You could have quit if you felt that strongly.
Well, I could, but I preferred to stay in and fight my corner because I'm not somebody who quits.
Meanwhile, speaking on the same programme, Rishi Sunak said if he becomes Prime Minister, he can't rule out introducing electricity blackouts due to rising energy prices.
Well, what I've said is that we shouldn't rule anything out. I mean, we're facing a genuine emergency. I think anyone pretending that that isn't the situation isn't being straight with the country. And by the way, across Europe, those plans are being drawn up, and I would imagine
we should prepare for blackouts, do you think?
Well, as I said, again, I'm not there, I'm not inside, but what I would say is we shouldn't rule anything out because the situation is serious.
3 men have now been arrested in connection with the death of 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Corbell in Liverpool. A 34-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder in connection. Meanwhile, a 41-year-old man from Knowsley has been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. Later on Sunday, police arrested a 29-year-old man also on suspicion of assisting an offender. He's in police custody and is being questioned by detectives. Olivia died nearly 2 weeks ago after she was shot in her home by an unknown gunman. A man has died after he was shot in West London this morning. Police were called to Kensington High Street after reports of gunfire. Officers found a man believed to be in his 20s with gunshot wounds. They tried to provide emergency first aid, but the man was taken to hospital where he died. A 29-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder and is now in custody. The number of people crossing the English Channel in small boats has passed 27,000 this year. Around 1,000 migrants have crossed over today. The number of crossings has increased in the last 2 days as weather conditions in the Channel improved. The migrants have been picked up by Border Force officers and taken for processing. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's over to headliners.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's papers, always in the company of two top comedians. I'm very excited tonight because we've got the incredible Diane Spencer with us and a good friend of mine, one of my all-time favourite comedians, Ben Norris. Lots to get through. Let's start with our first look at tomorrow's papers. Here are the front pages. We've got the Daily Mail for starters. Now BBC comic mocks Liz Truss after Have I Got News for You? C-word jibe at Boris Johnson. The corporation's new flagship politics show sparks fresh anti-Tory bias storm. The Bee was accused of anti-Tory bias again last night after a comedian called Joe Lycett mocked Liz Truss on its brand new top politics show presented by Laura Kuenssberg. Next up, we have The Independent. And they lead with the end of the party. That's the headline, with a really, really graphic cartoon of Boris Johnson in a bin with empty wine bottles. Andrew Grice looks at what's next for the departing Prime Minister, rumoured to fancy a comeback, and the divided Conservatives that he's leaving behind. The Guardian next. Truss will press on with tax cuts despite Tory warnings. Liz Truss has insisted she'll press ahead with plans for the UK to be a low-tax economy with less focus on wealth redistribution under her premiership, sparking calls for caution from Tory grandees. Meanwhile, good news for the Germans, who are going to get 65 billion euros in help to pay their energy bills. OK, next up, I think we'll go to the FT. Strains mount in Europe's power market as Nordics launch rescue package. The Express. Truss pledges action on energy bills in first week in office. The Tory leadership front-runner, expected to be confirmed as Prime Minister tomorrow, said a plan to support people and businesses will be unveiled within a week. An interesting line here in this Express story. Liz Truss fuelled speculation that any aid package may be worth £100 billion. So there you go. The Germans are offering, 65 billion euros. We're going to go 100. How about that? An arms race in terms of supporting people with their energy bills. Also, Charles hurt by Harry's behaviour on the front page of the Express. Next up, the Metro. Olivia's murder hunt. 3 are held. 3 new suspects have been are being quizzed by police in relation to the tragic murder of this 9-year-old girl. A truly tragic story. Let's hope that justice can be found for her and her family. Energy crisis, Truss plan by next week, say the Metro. And last but not least, the Daily Star. £20 a pint. We can't afford to cry in it. Tears for beers, say the Daily Star. It's a cost of boozing crisis. Mine's a pint. Just the one if prices hit £20 a glass. Beer boffins say pubs need help as energy costs could go up 500%. Truly eye-watering figures. You'd want to drown your sorrows having to pay that much for your heating. And those are your front pages. Ben Norris, great to see you on the Headliners show. You're very welcome. Let's have a look at the Telegraph and our possible future Prime Minister. Let's be honest, plot spoiler, it's going to be Liz Truss. And she's had some things to say about the energy price cap.
Yeah, it says Liz Truss refuses to rule out freezing energy bill cap. Or it could be Liz Truss refuses to rule out freezing, which is what we'll all be doing if we can't afford to have our heating on. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? The refusing to rule it out, because when I was a kid, I'd ask my parents if they'd take me to a theme park, and they refused to rule it out. I don't think I would have felt massively reassured by that.
No.
But, you know, she's keeping her...
Or if your
options open.
partner is having an amorous moment and you say, well, I refuse to rule out returning the compliment, but, I mean, it's not... it's not going to...
What, without me there?
Well, who knows?
OK.
That's another story. I mean, don't you think that a lot of this is about the optics, that she wants to get in and then she can make her big announcement?
Yeah, I would have thought she doesn't want to... she doesn't want to say anything right now that she's not going to be able to do, although politicians usually do that, don't they? They can make all sorts of claims and then say that things didn't work out quite how I hoped. But I think she's just, I think she's keeping her powder dry.
Yeah, because, I mean, she's going to be in a pickle. I mean, all leadership hopefuls are, because you say lots of things in order to get elected, and then what happens? It's like pass the parcel. You're the one with the parcel. It's like, oh, I've actually won, so I'm going to have to do some of these things now. Gulp.
Yeah,
that's what she'll be feeling tonight, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, whoever gets this gig, they must know they're in for some really unpleasant times ahead, because we're about to go into this winter of discontent, and it's quite apocalyptic, isn't it? And I think all of them know that they haven't really got an answer that's going to be sufficient. So
I think that's exactly right, isn't it, Diane? That this is the problem with we debate how to tackle the COVID pandemic. Do you lock down? Don't you lock down? All the rest of it. Whereas there is no answer to this. Global energy prices are massively inflated. It's a problem experienced across the West.
Yes.
Bugger all we can really do.
Yes, but I do find it interesting that, you see, October is really the date, because we're all thinking, right, October is when Ofgem lift the cap. And there are things that they could do to mitigate that damage. October is going to come whether we like it or not. But Ofgem raising the cap doesn't have to come, does it? Does it really have to come?
No.
Like, I mean, they were only invented this cap in, 2019. It's not like a long institution that we must do, you know? It's not like Pancake Day. Like, it's something that maybe has a bit of flexibility about it.
Yeah.
And
is Pancake Day, is that like a red line for you? Is that a deal breaker?
There is no way you can miss Pancake Day. Like, it's so important in my calendar. Like, I practice. That's all I'm saying. But... But the thing is that...
Shrove Tuesday, isn't it? Is that what they call it? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's what the religious people call it.
Yeah.
But to normal people, it's Pancake Day.
Whoa! So, Liz, I think it's interesting that Rishi, who you're like, wah, he's not going to get in.
Didn't go well.
I think it's interesting that he's saying, I haven't seen all the numbers in the nation's finances yet. So he's actually been quite honest and saying, I'm not sure, I can't see all of the numbers, so I can't tell you what I would do. And it's interesting...
This is the guy who was Chancellor of the Exchequer until July, and he doesn't know the numbers. They haven't changed that much.
Well, he's not gig fit, is he? He's had a few weeks off, you know what it's like.
Those numbers must be drastically different since the 5th of July.
He's had to learn how to put petrol in a car. That was really confusing for him.
Yeah, and for the owner of the car.
Also, Ben said something interesting there, which is that, we're all going to need help, actually, freezing to death or whatever, because, this can't be characterised as about, the elderly. This is everyone. I mean, this is schools, care homes, hospitality venues, swimming pools, offices. You know what I mean? It's a universal issue.
Well, I think that on your show, which we had just before, Edwina Curry made a really excellent point that I've been thinking the whole time. It's almost like a poll tax, this energy price cap, because it affects everybody completely equally, whether they're heating a mansion or whether they're heating a small studio flat. And that doesn't seem right. Like, if you are going to use a huge amount of energy and you are going to heat like a massive place, it does make more sense to have it in some kind of like staggered means tested, the way that they...
So when your usage goes up, you pay a proportionally higher amount?
Yeah, something like that.
A bit like stamp duty or any other kind of geared taxation.
Yeah, you've got it, That seems to me to be more fair.
Maybe I could be Chancellor?
Why not?
I mean...
Can you make a slick video where you look all cool and tell everybody you're the underdog?
Yeah, I'll do that. Well, I've got glasses. That means you're clever, doesn't it, Ben?
I've only had these for a couple of years and my IQ has shot up.
There you go. I thought so. Not the only thing. Let's move on to Monday's Daily Star, as we should. And as we all suffer energy price hikes, Parliament won't have the same concerns, Diane.
No, so this is a very angry story. So the MPs will ride out the energy crisis in the Commons with reduced rate as we face our 80% hike in October, or not, because if Liz comes in, maybe she's going to do something with Ofgem. We don't know. But so these figures, which have been released by the government from a Freedom of Information Act, have actually said that all the buildings on the parliamentary estate pay a reduced rate for gas and electricity. Now, at first you go, well, that's not fair. They're not paying as much as we are. It gets worse. MPs can claim their heating expenses. So the taxpayer is paying for MPs to heat even their second homes. They can pick a home, choose which one they want heated. And the thing that I found very insulting at the end was a parliamentary spokesperson said, "We've secured a good deal for taxpayers." Oh, thanks. To provide energy to the parliamentary estate. Could you possibly provide a good deal for the rest of us, sir?
Yeah,
Would
wouldn't
you
that be
mind?
nice? That's before you get to the subsidised bars and restaurants.
Oh, my God.
You know, it's a gravy train, the ultimate private members club.
I'm quite worried because I don't think I'm going to be able to afford to heat my second home.
I would have thought so, especially the library, the swimming pool.
Well, those are the places we were hoping we would be able to go to keep warm during the day. We could turn the heating off in our grimy little flats and go and sit in sort of public buildings, but they're going to be freezing as well. I think we're going to be hugging pensioners in post office queues just to keep everybody warm.
Almost inevitable. Listen, how do you guys look in a winter wardrobe? Because, I mean, joking apart, we are going to be wearing woolens this year, aren't we? I mean, we're going to be wrapped up indoors. Where do you stand on the etiquette of a coat indoors? Because Mrs. Dolan doesn't like it.
Mrs. Dolan is correct.
Yeah. Last year it was just cold, and she's quite strict with the heating at the best of times. So I put on a puffer jacket. She's like, "Take that thing off." I said, "I'm cold." She said, "Yeah, but you look like you're about to leave." Well, maybe I am, but anyway, do you know what I mean? But just like I like a coat indoors.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You need to invest in thermals, my dear.
Is that it?
Oh my gosh, thermals are the way
So
forward.
it's the kind of tight skin, second skin situation.
You basically wear a leotard the
Right.
whole time.
Right.
You feel fantastic.
All right. Any tips to stay warm in the winter, Ben Norris?
I think a coat is depressing. It inside a coat.
What do you go for? Do you like chunky knitwear? I see you in a roll neck.
Thank you. Actually, the truth is, I have a little sort of a rug thing that I started using last winter. Not this. You know, a little sort of, you know, you put it over your... Is that less depressing than a coat?
Is it a blanket? Does it have sleeves?
No, God, no. That's even more depressing. I don't think it should be anything you can get into.
Can I just say a blanket round your knees is a little premature, Ben? Yeah, I think you've peaked early there.
I know. I don't think I'd realised how sad that sounded until I said it. But it didn't seem as depressing as that when I was using it.
Well, at least it hasn't happened on national television. Monday's Mirror, and the police are warning that the squeeze on the cost of living could lead to scenes reminiscent of the London riots. Ben, really concerning predictions here.
It is. They think if things get as bad as they look like they could do, there may well be civil unrest. On the upside, rioting is quite a good way to get warm.
Correct.
And it's not bad for the police either, because they can wear a balaclava. So, you know, everyone will be quite toasty during the riot.
Well, yeah, I mean, bins on fire, cars ablaze, people can gather around, can't they?
Yeah, it would.
Marshmallows?
This is, this is another excuse for oppression of the people.
You think?
I really do. Like, because the cost of living crisis is the new thing that they are using to sort of keep us suppressed, because now they're releasing this and they're saying, oh, well, because the cost of living crisis, you lot are going to turn to crime. The crime will go up. So do you know what? We're going to have to bring in more rules. We're going to have to bring in more rules to keep that crime rate down. And they've already brought in this police crime sentencing act. And I think that this is because they are pushing this agenda, this idea that people are going to turn to crime, and this idea that there's going to be civil unrest, so that they can then impose tighter restrictions on the general movement of people.
I think that's a viable theory, getting the excuses in early, basically.
Yeah, because it's the same way that every time the budget's coming up, you'll notice that the guy who's in charge of MI5 suddenly says, there's so many problems that are happening around the world.
That's true.
Like right before the budgets are supposed to be
the
set.
Russians could bomb us in 10 minutes.
Yeah. The MI5 guy's like, I've noticed that things are going really bad. And like he makes a public announcement.
How about the rise of corporate crime? What about oil and gas companies using a war in Europe to exploit and take money out of our pockets? How about that?
Yeah.
Maybe the crime's already begun.
Well,
That's the crime.
I beg to differ. I think the oil industry, they're all good people and they're just doing their best. Let's move on now.
We've got a corporate coming up.
Of course, yeah. I'll be at the Shell Christmas party, 10th of December. See you there. Ben Norris is warming up. Monday's Guardian, and the government may have levelled up those areas that were already 2 levels ahead of the rest. Diane, what's going on?
Yeah, so new figures raise further questions about the failure of the government because to level up the poorest areas of the UK. So the fund has been allocated, they've given twice as much to the southeast as to the northeast. And what is interesting when you read this article is that the things that have been okayed are things like film studios. And you think, well, I mean, that is good for the film industry, but when you think about what may be required, that doesn't seem to be like maybe a more regular bus service, maybe trains that run on time, maybe something to do with the infrastructure, or the health service would be better.
Yeah.
And this is very interesting because it's all about the bidding process. And so far they discovered that it's supposed to be like 1.3 billion pounds are supposed to go into levelling up, but so far they're saying that barely 3% of that has actually been spent in the first year. So what is all this money doing? Is it just sitting in an account somewhere? I mean, I guess that's great if it is because it might be earning us interest. But my issue here is that, number one, any constituencies that actually have a Tory MP, there's a bias.
Yeah.
There seems to be that they are more likely to get the funding. Now, my question is, what is the bidding process? Because is it like just a website where, like, we've all had to fill in these websites when we do, like, our shows and stuff.
Yeah.
You just fill it, like, name, what's your show title, and you fill in your whole thing, and you're bidding to do a performance. Is it like that, or do they have any framework as how to create these bids? Because then, if you think about it, the poorer areas will remain poorer because they haven't got used to making the successful bids.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah, their PowerPoint's going to look really naff next to somebody else's PowerPoint who already wins all these successful bids and can invest in stuff like that.
Well, completely, and I think levelling up should be non-partisan. I mean, ideally, it would be cross-party levelling up, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're always going to favour one party or other will support the constituencies that vote for them.
They need a spirit level to get the level
Yeah, and
right.
it should be decided maybe by a sort of public body or something rather than politicians, because otherwise you get, don't you, Ben, pork barrel politics, where it's like, well, this particular constituency vote for me, so we'll give them the cash.
Yes, and there's at least 2 constituencies that wouldn't want pork barrel politics, I can think of. But the...
That's a fair point. Go down like a lead balloon, that, wouldn't it?
That, without the proper northern investment, the red wall is going to start tumbling down, isn't it? That's going to at least need repointing. But, I mean, was it Richie Sunak that was a bit worried about the very poor people of Tunbridge Wells, who he felt needed a little bit...
Well, that was, I think, the final nail in the coffin for his bid for leadership, wasn't it? When that video came out, when he boasted that he's diverted funds from poor urban areas to
Tunbridge Wells, of all places, I mean...
Well, have you not been to the rough parts of Tunbridge Wells?
I did, and I could hear them tutting before I even arrived.
Well, yeah, it's got a very dicey Morrison's, let me tell you. Don't want to relive that nightmare. Before we go, you mentioned Rishi Sunak. Might he be off to America?
Well, yes, it's apparently... Rishi Sunak refuses to rule out returning to California if he loses the Tory leadership race. This is really the kind of patriotism you're hoping for in a prospective British Prime Minister, isn't it? It's either PM or USA. He says he's, the likely Tory leadership flop, they call him here, Rishi Sunak, today refused to rule out moving back to California eventually if he loses the fight for number 10. And people say he's not in touch with the common people. Richie says in the short term, he'll stay as a Member of Parliament. He added, it's been a great privilege to represent them as their Member of Parliament for Richmond in North Yorkshire. And you can't help but feeling when someone first suggested that he stood as an MP for Richmond, that he didn't realise it was the one in North Yorkshire. He must have been gutted when he realised what he'd done there.
Devastated. There you go. Well, look, I tell you something, these two are not flying anywhere because we've got an amazing part to come. We'll be looking at how the super rich are preparing for the apocalypse, lower bus fares, and why criminal barristers are going on strike. See you shortly.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's papers tonight in the company of the brilliant comedians Diane Spencer and Ben Norris. So let's have a look at tomorrow's Daily Mail with some shocking statistics from the RAF. Diane.
Yeah, so the RAF drones they use the word blast, have blasted nearly 1,500 Islamic State fighters in the past 8 years in hundreds of missions. Now, this is coming at a time where we're talking about investing in our defence budget because obviously there's a war happening and it's getting close. So we are thinking about how we can expand our capabilities, and at the same time we're giving a lot of help to the Ukraine. And what you have to remember, behind every drone there is a whole team of people. It's not like just Star Wars. It's not like one person sat there with a PlayStation thing and they're just controlling this. There's a ground team. There's a whole tactical unit behind it that are gathering information. They're identifying the target. They're kind of identifying their habits. So many manpowers and people go into a drone strike. It's not just me. It's not just like that.
It's not a 13-year-old North London teenager.
No,
with
accidentally
that
hacking
they
in with
bought
his...
from Argos.
Yeah, it's not that.
Although when they did first start appearing, drones, we were told they were dangerous, and this would seem to back that up.
Yeah.
1,500 people have been killed or injured by it.
Who knew? Exactly. That's someone's Christmas present that's killing people.
I mean, those kind of drones can be slightly annoying, and
I mean, this is a headline. I mean, obviously, war is awful and death is tragic, but I mean, it's obviously it's a proud boast for the RAF, really, isn't it?
It is a proud boast, especially at a time which we sort of need, whilst one of our aircraft carriers sadly broke down on its, it was leaving the port, and then it had a propeller misfunction, so it is a nice thing to have a boast about. But I think it's very interesting that we're looking at it this way, and this is while our country is using drones on other countries. Yeah. And that's something to bear in mind, because other countries also have drones, and they're very interesting. They can use multispectral cameras and they use lasers. This is really the sort of future of warfare.
It's quite terrifying, really,
yes,
isn't it?
It is terrifying.
Mean, it's easy to look at this and go, well, these are just baddies. I mean, they're just the baddies. But
they think they're goodies.
There's not... it's not clear, how these people are identified and how 110% sure we are that we just got the right guy with that thing in the sky. I don't know. I mean, it just...
Oh, no, I'd say they're pretty sure, actually.
Well...
They're pretty good. I'd say...
Is there a court case?
I don't know if there is a court case, but I would say that the amount of time and effort that goes into identifying these targets, I don't think that they...
You wouldn't have any doubt about that?
I mean... Obviously, there would always be the potential, but I think so much effort goes into every single strike. Yeah. I would say that obviously, deeply sad, tragic events can happen where they do. There was that thing where they did hit a car that was full of a family. They got it really, really... And when it goes wrong, it's horridly wrong. But this is the future of warfare at a time when we're getting a new Prime Minister that...
But as you said, it's eventually we'll be on the other end of this.
Yeah, get an umbrella.
And what about robots in combat? There's a thought to keep you awake at night.
Exciting, but terrifying too.
It's more likely that they're actually more sort of focused on developing things that they're going to put in the sky, like they're essentially lasers, but they call them something like focused energy weapons. And it's essentially they never in these sort of circles say, oh, yeah, it's to obliterate people. But it is. It's essentially to sort of microwave people from a distance. Wow. There's all sorts of strange things happening in defence. Yeah. 3 seconds left.
Let's hope that you get defrost mode, then you've got a few minutes to get out. Ben, let's talk about this story in The Guardian and the super rich protecting themselves from Armageddon.
Yeah.
Drones.
It's all sounding so bonkersly futuristic, and yet it's here, isn't it? The future's here. We've been waiting for this for a long time, and it's happening. But billionaires are able to literally construct kind of super bunkers to protect themselves and their loved ones from what they call the event. The event could be various different things. Could be, climate collapse. Could be nuclear. Could be all sorts of awful things that are on the horizon. And these billionaires are hoping that they can sort of save themselves. And also they're going to have trained Navy SEALs, sort of teams of ex-Navy SEALs to protect them. But it isn't clear how you get sort of allegiance from sort of your little private army when everything's gone down. Because for what reason would they stand outside your bunker unless... they're actually suggesting that they'll have some sort of behavioural collars, I think I read in here. Some really bonkers stuff.
Yeah.
How do you get allegiance from a seal? I mean, maybe a bucket of fish. I don't know.
Well, that might do it. I mean, what would be in your bunker? Because I'd have to have tea bags, a good pillow. I go for a memory foam pillow because I'll be down there for a while. Netflix, obviously. GBNews.
Clearly, I mean, the idea is that we don't get to the bunker stage. This is what this article is kind of putting forward. He's saying that the worry about these people is that they tend to be these elite millionaires, like they tend to be sort of Bitcoin...
Millionaires? They're lightweights. It's billionaires.
Yeah, sorry, trillionaires. Yeah, they're the proper, like super beyond bonkers elite wealthy, like buying an island just for fun. And the problem is that they enter a certain mindset where they're always trying to get away from the rest of us. And they've got this whole kind of... This is what the...
They sort of welcome the apocalypse.
They do, and that's the problem.
They want to get rid of the ant people, us.
We're the ant people, and they're aiming for the end game.
Don't get rid of Adamant.
No.
No, not Adamant.
A lot of hits in the 80s.
but we're part of the so long losers that they want to kind of get away from. And the problem is that sometimes, like if they are these Bitcoin trillionaires, because they're mining their Bitcoin and they're burning up all this energy, for example, and they are pushing, because Bitcoin is so bad for the environment, and they're trying to destabilize countries like El Salvador by making it their currency. They're actually pushing us all towards this apocalyptic thing where they've already got their bunker because they want to get to that end game to prove that they've kind of won.
Yes, you like to think that nothing so apocalyptic will be caused by people unwittingly, or wittingly, I should say, because they're in it just like us. But as soon as they can remove themselves from the fear of it, they can continue to do it.
Yeah.
And that sort of seems to be where we're...
And then they don't have to worry about climate change or war.
Yeah.
Anything.
They might welcome it.
Exactly. It supports their master plan.
Yeah, you got it.
Who knew? Right, well, I'll get digging my bunker when I get home. I'll put Mrs. Dolan in it first and see how that plays out. And hopefully there's enough oxygen down there. The Metro now, and our next story is about something cheap, colourful, but amazingly efficient. No, it's not Leo Kers's wardrobe. It's buses. Now, look, this is a really important story and one close to my heart.
Okay.
Yeah, it's making sure that public transport is affordable.
Yeah, public transport should be affordable. So the bus fares in England are going to be capped at £2 this winter. So this temporary cap will apply until March 2023. I mean, it is a bit of a token gesture. I think it is important because obviously we have massive rises in the fuel prices, which the government, we need them to do something like reduce the duty on the fuel, just anything. Like, I know they've frozen it, but maybe they could reduce it a bit. I don't know. And we're having less choices in terms of where we go because the train people are striking, the flights are being cut, and a lot of people can't afford their fuel. So it's really great that the buses are going to be capped at £2, but I kind of feel like it's the government sort of trying to distract us from the other things by saying, oh, look, you could still go on the bus and now we've capped it for you. You're
But actually,
welcome.
you know, with the way bus routes work, you can sort of, and if it is going to be capped at £2, you can get on and stay on it all day. The heating's on in the bus.
Correct.
That's very true.
That might be where I'm going to spend my...
And in the winter, if you're
Going
lucky, there could be some rioting happening within the bus. It should be cosy.
Certainly upstairs, there often is.
Upstairs at the back.
Yeah, on a night bus.
Never ever
don't
been.
go upstairs.
Have you ever been upstairs at the back?
Yes.
Yeah.
Terrifying. Never again.
What?
It's,
You said you liked my poetry.
No, the night bus, which I used to use regularly on, you know, having missed the last other transport back from a comedy gig, I'd seen some crazy stuff happening upstairs on a night bus. So I always try and sit down stairs or just
near the driver.
Stand near the driver saying, please let me off if it all kicks off.
Oh, I see it as like, it's almost like a ticket to the theatre, but you have no idea what show you're going to see.
And
it's exciting.
It might be interactive.
Oh, it's very interactive usually. They usually want to tell you all about it.
Ben, are you still getting around on a motorbike?
Yes.
So you're insulated from these concerns about public transport?
I still use public transport. I mean, there are times... I've got a car, I have a motorcycle, and I use trains and buses, and the tube. So I think, you know, it's nice to have...
a nice mix there.
Yeah, really nice options to have.
Nicely done. OK, well, look, before you get your leathers on, let's crack on with our next story. Tomorrow's Daily Mail, the BBC have been accused of insensitivity surrounding the Notting Hill Carnival, Ben.
Yes, apparently the BBC, the Daily Mail have said the BBC Radio 1 Extra glorified violence by playing rap songs referencing the use of guns and knives after the Notting Hill Carnival stab death. A BBC radio channel repeatedly played grime rap songs that openly glorified gang violence before and after the Notting Hill Carnival, where a man was stabbed to death. Those critics are mostly... So critics have blasted the corporation, and those critics, it seemed, are mostly the Daily Mail. It says here, on the eve of the Carnival last weekend, which saw more than 200 arrests, stabbings and one suspected murder, presenter Sir Spyro played Pre-Season by Act So Large with lyrics that began, I make drug dealer anthems, come from a drug dealer family, re-up from Los Angeles, born and bred in Tower Hamlets, man swing fist, man swing weapon, anything. I've got a set of toes that you don't want to step on. In that case, I just hope he's not one of those guys who wears sliders and socks, because you're absolutely asking for your toes to be stepped on if you go with that particular look.
Just a little bit.
But in seriousness, I don't really want to live in a society where we are sort of scrutinising song lyrics and saying that one's acceptable and this one isn't. It's not North Korea. These are, music is art. Lyrics are sometimes perceived to be dangerous or controversial, but usually it's artists reflecting the culture and the life around them, and you can easily grab some lyrics and say, hey, this is outrageous, but you don't know the context that the artist is coming from. We're not banning burning books. We're not banning lyrics.
Yeah, censorship hasn't got a great track record historically, has it, Diane?
No, not really, because you just find other ways to express yourself. And I think this is very presumptuous. They are presuming that the people who committed the violence were tuning into BBC Radio 1 Extra. They are presuming that. I don't know if that was true. I mean, it could be...
Certainly that was an instructional audio.
Do people that own a DAB plus radio, are they naturally violent?
I mean, like...
Because you've got to get those in, like, John Lewis and stuff, haven't you?
Well, I've been in John Lewis and I'm happy to get into a fight. I would say most people who shop in John Lewis are actually
Black
quite
Friday.
violent.
I've had some issues.
The clearance.
Oh, my God.
The famous clearance sale.
It's like the purge. Yeah.
I've had one or two issues with DAB radios in the past. When they suddenly, you can't tune them properly and they don't find any channels. That can make you violent, that stuff.
That's a very good point. Well, I'm delighted to say that we've got lots of people listening on DAB Plus to GB News. We've got lots more stories to get through as well. How about this before the break? Criminal barristers threatening to go on strike. Diane.
Yes. So the criminal barristers are preparing for indefinite strike over the legal aid. So... Again, this is quite interesting when you put it into the context of what's happening. Referring back to what I said earlier, you've got, them saying people are going to start breaking the law more. And when people break the law, we need to increase the policing and we're going to push people through the courts, but there aren't going to be any criminal barristers. Dominic Raab, I think, is being very... unfair. I think they should push their wages up. I know people who have worked in the exact scenario and they really don't earn enough money. And these people are highly educated people. They need to spend that time reading the books. They need to spend that time learning what to do to help people.
And some of them are on less than the starting salary of a primary school teacher. Not that they shouldn't be paid well too. Yeah. And of course, we've seen. I mean, this has been going on since 2010, and the economic downturn. I think that the cuts to the Justice Department were about 40% during austerity.
Yes, because barristers used to earn amazing money, didn't they? Criminal barristers, and then it suddenly. I had a neighbour who was a barrister, and he was the first to tell me it's been slashed dramatically. And suddenly it was no longer a decent living, and they have to go all over the country. They're a bit like comics. They get a gig in a court, a long way from their home, and they have to put themselves up and get trains, and there's quite a lot of expenses involved and a lot of that used to be covered, and then it wasn't. So it's not an attractive proposition to be a barrister anymore. But I was thinking, imagine if they end up picketing outside the courts, and I don't know, it all kicks off, and a load of them are arrested, and they find themselves in court, presumably representing themselves, actually working for nothing at all. That would be quite interesting.
Well, that's right. I do love it when people defend themselves in court, and they'd have the expertise because they're top lawyers.
They would, and now that courts are televised, we will be able to watch everything, I guess, because we can look inside courts now, can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can watch it on the telly.
But it's got really bad now. Apparently, even Judge Judy is going to Lidl. That's how bad it is. I mean,
hey, I like Lidl.
Lidl's good. She's been in there, Judge Judy. She likes the meat.
That's a rumour.
And also fishing rods and fleeces and...
flippers.
LED candles and all of the rest of it. There you go. Well, look, lots more to get through. We've saved our best till last because next up, we'll be discussing some animal accidents, old school Tinder, and an alcohol-free World Cup. See you shortly.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's papers. Tonight, in the company of Diane Spencer and Ben Norris, two brilliant comedians, two good friends of mine. Well, let's start now in this part of the show with The Telegraph and a story about some counterproductive animal activists. Ben.
Yes, as an ex-animal activist myself in the 80s, I got involved in a few actions, but never quite as dramatic as this one. They basically released 7,000 mink from a fur farm, and you can imagine their thoughts. Just, you know, this is cruel. Let's let them go, and it seemed to make sense. But unfortunately, the mink went crazy and sort of ate all the water voles. So this was an unintended consequence of their perhaps well-meaning instinct to release these poor animals that were going to be turned into fur coats for silly rich women. I mean, I think a fur coat always looks best on its original owner. But I agree that this was probably an error, because it would have been a bit like, I don't know, hundreds of skinheads being released into an emo concert. The water voles wouldn't have known what hit them. It must have been quite
exactly.
awful.
You've got to feel
but
for them.
They're recovering, aren't they? So apparently, mainly because what's interesting, 2,000 of the escaped American mink were shot or run over by local farmers. I mean, that is a niche blood sport, isn't it? Running over mink in your Range Rover. That's pretty odd. So they've died out bit by bit, the mink, and the water voles have been reintroduced, and they're coming.
And it would have been a violent death for those water voles.
I imagine they would have had their throats ripped out.
Yeah.
As would be being driven over by a Range Rover.
And the thing is that I wouldn't be a fan of mink coats. It seems a bit cruel. I eat meat, and I think I justify it to myself that somehow you need food to survive. That'd be my suggestion. But you don't really need a fur coat to survive. And also, this is not the natural habitat of the mink, is it? So releasing them into the wild, in inverted commas, is, as we've said in the intro, counterproductive.
It also depends on how the mink have been reared, because if the mink have been reared from wee tiny babies and then they are released into the wild, they have no wildlife skills. That's why they're running into Range Rovers, because they don't know. They haven't learned.
I guess they would instinctively realise that a water vole was edible.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right, they must have spent the first hour going, what do we do?
Yeah, like I'm not used to walking more than like a foot.
Yeah.
What do we keep going? What do we do? Yeah, so they would have been a little bit lost. But yeah, you can't ever do that with biodiversity. You're right. They had the right intentions, but just going "be free, my friends" is not the way to do it. Instead, like they could have taken the mink and given them to a zoo. That would have been good.
I suppose they might have got caught on the way.
Yeah, but I mean that would be great, isn't it? If you'd like driving in your van, you get pulled over because you're accidentally speeding, and you look in the back and you've got.
Are these your 7,000 minks?
Yeah, you've got all these minks. You go, shh, be quiet. Let me do the talking.
Well, look, going from one animal species to another, can we talk about beavers?
Yes, we can. So we now have beavers, which is wondrous because they were. Shot and stuff to extinction, and they've been reintroduced. But now farmers in England are going to be allowed to use lethal force on beavers again. So they were reintroduced, and they did very well because they are supposed to live here, unlike the fabled mink.
Yes.
That just hangs around in cars, like just hoping to get to a zoo. But the thing is that they haven't properly communicated with the farmers' union, and the beavers obviously they love projects, they love making dams, they love kind of building things, and they can interfere with farmers. Now, obviously, we have we need to look after our farmers. We need to give them money to grow food, not money to grow solar panels. Although, who knows? Because of all the grain ships being held in Ukraine, would be good if we had some food here. That'd be great.
Correct.
So obviously, if a beaver then builds a little dam, ta-da, and then floods the farmer's field, that is an issue. But
although conservationists say that they're an ally to farmers.
They are an ally to farmers, yeah. So the conservationists are saying, no, you can work with a beaver, sit down, have a cup of coffee, chat about what you both want out of this relationship.
I love to work with a beaver,
Yeah?
if I get a chance. But the farmers are going to be delighted that there's yet another animal that they can drive over in their Range Rover.
Yeah,
well, it's true. I mean, it's the roadkill potential is massive.
Although you're going to really feel it when you hit a beaver. That's a big creature, isn't it?
Oh, the A303 is just going to get so depressing. It's bad enough because it's sort of like black badger.
Well, the only time you ever see a badger is a big dead badger by the side of the road.
It is easy for us, isn't it, in an urban setting to kind of talk about the beavers and you think, right, it's all about nature and reintroduce these animals. But we know how hard life is for farmers.
Yes.
I mean, they're struggling to make ends meet at the best of times. For example, if you're rearing lamb, what do you get for a whole lamb? A couple of quid for a supermarket, and yet they'll sell a tiny chunk of that lamb for £3.50 in the actual supermarket. So it's not easy they don't get paid enough for their milk, their grain.
Yeah.
So therefore, anything that disrupts the fields that they are tending is a bit of a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah, and all they're saying in this article is that some people are just saying, look, we just wish that you had consulted. They wish the government had consulted the National Farmers Union before...
A bit unilateral, isn't it? Unilateral, this decision to this is what we're going to do. We're not going to negotiate with the people who are investors in the land, which is what farmers are.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's interesting is that James Wallace, the former CEO of the Beaver Trust, said killing beavers should be the last thing on our minds as we encourage people to welcome them back. But if it is necessary, it should be done by a licensed professional. MI5?
Now you're talking.
Yeah.
Now that is a kind of creativity we look for here on Headliners. Speaking of creativity, let's talk about football now. The World Cup is coming and the Daily Mail report that it will be a sober one. Ben?
Yeah, it's going to be amazing, isn't it? Qatar. Some people have argued that it's been slightly crooked in its development, but there we are. Let's put that to one side. It's going to be fascinating seeing thousands of English football, and obviously people from all over the world, but the English football fans sort of, the beer and the football go together, don't they? And it is going to be rather restricted in Qatar. I mean, it's a country that, it's a Muslim country. They don't approve of alcohol. I think they sort of allow it in certain restaurants and hotels. But they're going to have these fan zones before and after the game, very restricted amounts of beer. So it's going to be, I think some of those fans are going to find it very difficult to not get the normal amount of booze inside them before they go to see the game.
Are you a football supporter yourself?
I'm not I'm not massively. I mean, the World Cup's always interesting, but the day-to-day, week-to-week, 2-1 kind of. Who cares? I mean, it's hard to care. I know I'm out. I'm out of the loop here because my dad never took me to the football, so I'm not. I haven't got a team. I don't support anybody. I'm more rugby.
Are you? Oh, that's it. What's it? A game played by thugs, watched by gentlemen.
Which one's that one?
Rugby.
That's football.
Eh?
Rugby's the other way around.
What you call it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah. This was Oscar Wilde, wasn't it?
Oh, is that it? Yeah.
Call me a thug.
Well, do you play football?
I used to watch it a lot.
Oh, watch it.
We're going to have it out.
Yeah. No, well, you'll have to have it out with Oscar. Wasn't me.
The world of comedy would be lost without a bit of booze, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Have you ever played to a sober crowd?
Oh God, not if I can help it.
Only when they weren't sober when I started. But they were
By the end.
time I finished.
Cue for the bar.
Yeah.
This is interesting because obviously Qatar is doing the football stadium because they're sports washing, because they want to make themselves look more appealing on the world stage and just, don't worry about the way that we treat people, it doesn't matter.
What does sports washing mean?
Sports washing is when you host a high-profile event and people want to take part in that event, and you're using sports to promote yourself so that people think that you're good, and they don't want to. They don't focus on the questionable, controversial things that you're doing.
Right.
So it's like greenwashing. Where you pretend that you've got all these ecological things that's going on because you're trying to hide something else. I mean, it is interesting because they're going to have fan zones, like stadium zones, and before and after, they're going to allow drinking. There's already a rule where you can't drink in sight of the pitch because, you do want people to retain a certain amount of sobriety, because it's only a small minority that really do genuinely ruin it for everybody else.
By the way, it's only at the football that you can't drink at the pitch. At the rugby, you can drink at the pitch because they know that rugby fans aren't going to stop.
It's because of the shape
Attacking
of
each other.
They're not going to kick
ball.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the shape of the ball. Because the ball in rugby is egg-shaped, you don't know where it's going to bounce, so it disperses tension. Whereas a football... No, this has been proved. Whereas a football is circular, so you know exactly where it should go. So when that idiot puts it in the wrong place, you get really mad.
Right. I'd not heard that theory in my life.
Blimey. Gaza would have struggled at a dry World Cup, wouldn't he?
We'd have missed out on so much
We
magic.
wouldn't have had the iconic dentist chair moment. Tomorrow's Guardian now, and giving us a Trump-esque reaction from Amazon, who claimed that bad reviews are fake news, Diane.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So Amazon has delayed the Rings of Power ratings to combat fake reviews. So there's this thing called review bombing. Did you know about this?
Yes.
Oh, OK. So I didn't know about this. So this is where people pile on because they have a problem with something and they just write loads of fake reviews.
Axe to grind.
Yeah, massive axe to grind. They haven't actually seen the thing. They just want to criticise it straight away. And so the show has attracted 17,500 one-star ratings. Now, that seems like an anomaly to me. Like, you could say, yeah, but maybe it's bad. I don't know. I haven't seen it. But that seems unusual in the short space of time that it's been available. But what is interesting here is that Amazon Video are keeping a tight lid on this, whereas previously they have been criticised for not keeping a tight lid on the way that their products are reviewed on their shopping website, which means that you can end up buying something that's really bad because they've just
Fake reviews. Yeah. But it said here that this was an anti-woke backlash to the diverse casting in this in this show. Now, an anti-woke backlash to diverse casting, or racists.
Yeah, I think it's just racist. Yeah, it's just racist.
That's the old school name.
Because it says
really
Rings of Power,
pathetic.
which features non-white actors cast as elves and dwarves, and everyone knows elves and dwarves are white.
Correct. It's I've got images on my computer that will prove just that. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, when you buy items online, do you look at reviews, Ben?
Yes, I do, and that's what we're very vulnerable to that. I think because I for a long period of time I would always check the reviews before I bought a thing, but now we hear a lot of those reviews are just made up. So who can we believe?
No, you believe the reviews that leave the photos. Like, do you ever leave? Because you see, I read the reviews, so I leave reviews. And I leave reviews with little pictures so
there you
people
go.
can see that I'm telling
Well,
them.
let me tell you that you both get 5 stars tonight.
Oh,
Smashed it. I don't think that just says it on the script. Thank you very much. Headliners is back tomorrow at 11, and I'm back on Friday at 9. Thanks for your company this weekend. Loved every second.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate, and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk.